Mantello, co-founder of Berkshire Paranormal Group, one of the investigators, and also a member of Lafayette Greylock Lodge, which is located here in the Houghton Mansion. Kind of a brief history of the tragedies that brought together all these hauntings or whatever we have here. It was a Sunday afternoon. Mr. Houghton, his friend Dr. Houghton, Dr. Houghton's wife Sybil, and Mr. Houghton's daughter Mary were going to take a Sunday drive up to Bennington. The chauffeur, Mr. Witters, was at the wheel. On the way up in Pownell, they were on a place which is now Oak Hill Road. They were going around a team of horses and hit a soft shoulder, and the car began to race, and he lost control and it rolled down an embankment, turning over 3 times. The men were all ejected from the vehicle. The women weren't so lucky. Mary suffered trauma to her face and her head, and was brought back to North Adams and died later that afternoon at 3 o'clock. Sybil Houghton died instantly on the scene. That day, Mr. Houghton, seeing Mr. Witters in a highly traumatized state, ordered a watch to be put on him because he was afraid he was going to do something irrational. But later on the next morning, about 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, he told the guy who was watching him that he was going to go tend to the horses. Well, after a reasonable amount of time, they considered to be a reasonable amount of time, Mr. Witters didn't come back. They went and they found him, and he shot himself with a horse pistol. So there were those 2 deaths within 2 days. Well, the day of Mary's burial, I believe, which was 9 days later, Mr. Houghton passed away here at the mansion, in his room. It was said that, it was from grief, from losing his friend and his daughter. So we have those 3 tragedies, but we also have another entity she kind of really hangs out in the cellar on the first floor, mainly the north section of the first floor, and we believe her to be a small spirit, a small little girl. I've heard her at least 4 times giggle. I'll tell you what, it'll make the hair stand up on the back of your neck when you hear it, because it's very, very distinctive and very clear. I've heard little footsteps downstairs. I've seen the shadow peek around the corner. She's very prominent in the cellar.
On our first investigation here, one of our investigators, Alec Arbor, he was walking down into the basement here with the rest of the group, and he looks over into this doorway right here, and he sees an apparition of a little girl. She's probably about 3 feet tall, wearing a dress, he said, and he blinked and she was gone, and she disappeared. People will come down on me.
We're not really sure who she is. We've got some ideas. There were 2 other structures that we know of previous to this structure being here. There was a home which was moved up the street for Mr. Houghton to build his mansion here. And before that home, there was a parsonage. So she could be connected to either one of those structures, or then there's the possibility of Mr. Houghton also had a daughter that died at the age of 3 or 4, I believe 3. This child died at the age of 3. She would have been older than Mary if she had lived. I guess she succumbed to some type of childhood disease. The mansion was built in the I think the early 1890s, somewhere around there. Mr. Houghton bought it. He was a textile tycoon, millionaire, had a lot of money. He then ran for mayor of North Adams. He was the first mayor of North Adams. The building was sold to the Masons in the 1920s for, I think it was $1. It was some kind of funny thing, but we did find out later on that Mr. Houghton also was a Freemason, so he had connections with a lot of activity here. You know, from water turning on, water turning off, footsteps. I can't say apparitions, I'd probably say shadow people. We have a lot of shadow people. Door closings, footsteps are plentiful, and door closings are plentiful too. And, you know, you'll be in one room and hear a door close, and you don't know which door it was that closed. One of the best stories I have. I was sitting downstairs in the library. It was a winter, 2 or 3 years ago. One of the other brothers, Randy Ransford, was sitting with me, and we were waiting for one more guy to show up. And he was on one side of the desk, I was on the other. And we had the doors closed to the library just to conserve some heat. And we heard the side door open and close, and someone sounded like they were banging snow off their feet. Well, after like a minute or two, I said, you know, where the heck is he? You know, we call him Stewie. His name is Mike Hernandez. I said, where is he? So Randy gets up and he slides the door open. He looks down the hall and he says, there's nobody here. I said, geez, maybe he went out on the front porch for something. So while he went out on the front porch to look for him, I went out the other door and opened up the door that we heard open and close. And when I did, there was no footprints. It was all deep snow. So I called Randy over. I said, Randy, come check this out. And Randy was a very skeptical non-believer. And after he saw that, and he heard it, and he witnessed the whole thing, turned him around. You know, it just takes one good instance like that to really take a non-believer and turn him into a believer. So when this one guy comes in, he was here for about 15-20 minutes, and the group, they were starting to set the cameras up, and he goes into the men's room. He comes back out, he goes, you got me. I go, what happened? He goes, I'm standing there at the urinal. He said, the urinal next to me flushed all my inside. I said, you're kidding me. So that's a new one. We have a lot of new things happen. For a while there, we were having a water bill. It was crazy because they like to play with the water. They took the water out of the bathroom. We had some girls in there washing their hands, and they turned the water off right there where the girls were washing their hands. We've had some pretty good documentation of shadow people, big dark, I don't want to call them orbs, but a dark area, you know, transparent but dark. I witnessed it actually in this room. I was sitting over on the couch looking out the door, and I saw it come out of Mr. Houghton's room, and he kind of drift over and just kind of hover, and like it was watching us. It was me and another guest, and we were sitting there on the couch, and we were watching it. It was like, wow. And then it just kind of went back in the room.
Okay, on a previous trip to Houghton Mansion, we're in the basement area. We had static vision, night vision cameras set up in the basement, and we had one set up right behind where the camera is, facing into this room right here. And what we caught, which was amazing, was a white, misty type of figure that looked like it was doing two things. First thing it looked like it was doing, it looked like it poked its head around the corner in this room and poked its head out something along this line. Then you saw it withdraw, and then what we saw from the camera, again, the camera was right behind where this camera is. It looked like something walked across the opening right here into this enclosed room. Camera angle and big screen. So if you come to one of our lectures, you'll be able to see that piece of evidence. Was it an apparition? We think it is. There's really no explanation that we can find to debunk it.
There were always reports of stuff happening here. You know, footsteps. It just always happened, and nobody ever really pursued it. That's when we kind of loosely formed Berkshire Paranormal Group, and then that kind of got bigger and stronger, and then we decided, geez, you know, there's a lot of potential here for this building to generate money, you know, to help support the building. If we didn't do the ghost tours and the ghost sleepovers, the building would be boarded up right now. I could guarantee that. This year alone, we've spent $6,000 or $7,000 in fuel, and every penny of that money has came from paranormal donations from people doing tours and sleepovers. So, and there's no possible way that we could have generated that kind of money through our membership and fundraiser. So it's really helped support the building. It's maintained the building. We've put a new roof on. It's phenomenal. Old Mr. Houghton is still working. We're not letting him off the hook.